You're listening to Crosstalk on Steady State Radio. I'm Vega. Today, IEEE Spectrum reports that large language models with step-by-step reasoning capabilities introduce a security risk, allowing attackers to slow these systems through computational exhaustion. Marlow, Cass, this feels like a vulnerability that's baked into the design itself.
It is, and that's precisely the problem. According to IEEE Spectrum, these reasoning models are built to think through problems step by step, which means an attacker can craft inputs that force the system into exponentially longer reasoning chains. It's a denial-of-service attack that exploits the feature that's supposed to make these models better. You're weaponizing the model's own architecture against itself.
Sure, but let's be clear about what we're actually facing here. This isn't some novel attack surface. Any computational system has resource limits, and adversarial inputs that maximize resource consumption have existed since the first web server. The question is whether the reasoning capability itself creates a qualitatively different threat, or just a quantitative scaling of an old problem.
The difference is predictability and cost asymmetry. With traditional systems, you can rate limit requests or detect anomalous traffic patterns. But according to the IEEE Spectrum piece, these reasoning models are designed to spend more time on harder problems. That's the intended behavior. So how do you distinguish between a legitimate complex query and a malicious one designed to burn through your compute budget? The attacker spends pennies crafting a prompt, you spend dollars processing it.
That cost asymmetry is real, I'll grant that. But the mechanism matters here. If these models are generating step-by-step reasoning, that reasoning is legible. You can monitor token generation rates, set maximum reasoning depth limits, or implement circuit breakers when compute costs exceed thresholds for a given query type. IEEE Spectrum is reporting on the vulnerability, but the mitigations are fairly straightforward engineering problems.
Straightforward until you hit the trade-off. Set your thresholds too low and you've just kneecapped the reasoning capability that justified deploying this model in the first place. Set them too high and you're still vulnerable. And we're not talking about some experimental system here. According to IEEE Spectrum, these are the models being positioned as the next generation of AI assistants deployed at scale. The attack surface grows with adoption.
The attack surface grows, but so does the incentive to solve it. And here's the second-order effect you're missing. If reasoning models expose their chain of thought, that creates an audit trail. Traditional models are black boxes. You send a query, you get an answer, and if something's wrong, you have no idea where it broke. A reasoning model that shows its work gives you observability. Yes, that same transparency lets an attacker see what's computationally expensive, but it also lets defenders understand what's happening and where to intervene.
I'll concede the observability point. That is a meaningful difference. Though I'd note it only helps if you're actually monitoring those reasoning chains in real time, which adds another computational overhead to a system you're already trying to protect from computational exhaustion. The defender's dilemma scales with the system.
Fair, and I'll concede that the cost asymmetry is harder to manage here than with traditional rate limiting. An attacker who understands the reasoning architecture can probably craft inputs that are far more efficient at burning compute than random spam. That's a genuine escalation of the denial-of-service problem. So we're looking at a vulnerability that's intrinsic to the capability, with mitigations that exist but cut against the reason you deploy these systems in the first place.
And an attack surface that grows as these models see wider adoption.
With the caveat that the same reasoning transparency that creates the vulnerability might also enable better defenses than we have for opaque systems. Unresolved as it should be, that's Crosstalk. Back to the music on Steady State Radio.